Let us gather, beloveds. Let us gather in this moment of grief, in this moment of rage, in this moment of turning, this moment of crossing over into something else. Let us gather, whether we are confused, overwhelmed, hopeful, proud, devastated, sad, curious, numb, or some combination of these things. Let us gather noticing our milestones, noticing the brokenness of the world around us and within us, noticing the power of love to move us toward witness and possibly someday to repair. Let us worship together. Welcome to virtual worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Silver Spring. I am the Reverend Lynn Cox. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the interim minister. Today's service is about the changes in our lives, how we are handling those changes differently in these times, and the ways in which we are called forward through those changes. These changes include an awakening or a reawakening or a stay awakening of conscience as we grieve for George Floyd, Tony McDade, Breonna Taylor, and so many others, as we rebuke police violence, as we declare once again that Black lives matter. These changes in our lives include bridging, in which we honor those who are transitioning from youth to young adulthood, and we welcome them into the larger circle of adult community. These changes include moving house, new jobs or lost jobs, the deaths of those dear to us, new procedures to try to reduce the risk of disease, and many other turns in our journeys. Visitors from around the world, you are especially welcome. Dina Rayleigh is our welcoming captain of the day. If you are watching live, you can find her in the chat. If you are a visitor or considering membership, please email membership@uucss.org to connect. Speaking of the chat, please keep in mind that it is very public during the live stream. The chat will not be available for later playback, but it's still a good idea to be mindful of what we're posting. Thank you to Joe Paoletti and Scott Sleek for moderating the chat. Visitors, members, friends, children, youth, whoever you are, I'm glad you are here. Thank you to all of the staff and volunteers who made today's service possible, including musicians, Technical Director Jake Ryder, Audio Engineer Rob Dahlstrom. Thank you to Congregational Administrator Melinda Yalom, who made sure that members and friends received a number of important updates this week. Thank you to lay speakers Veronica Martin and Tanya Palacio for their contributions today. Thank you to Bonnie Gallion for being today's worship associate. It's almost time for Bonnie to lead us in the chalice lighting and congregational commitment. If you have a chalice, candle, or flashlight at home, please get ready to light it. Let us know in the chat that the chalice is lit and in general terms where you are.
Please join me in the words on your screen as we light our chalices. May this light warm our hearts with love and caring, and guide us in the ways of truth. As we gather here for worship, we pledge ourselves to the endless search for truth, to the right of each to believe as mind, heart, and conscience dictate, to accept the responsibilities this freedom commands, and to implement our belief in the essential worth and dignity of every human being.
Today, we celebrate the passage of 4 young people from youth into young adulthood. The bridging ceremony recognizes official entry into the adult community of Unitarian Universalists.
Bridging does not mean sending our young adults forth on a lonely path. This ceremony marks the reshaping of our community as we recognize new roles. We have blessings and words of wisdom for the Bridgers, but first, let's introduce the Bridgers who are participating in this ceremony. Kaylin Deaver, Bailey Jorgensen, Claire Kirk, Zosha Massey Nicholson, and Ellie Wilmarth.
Next, we have blessings from representatives of a few groups of people whose lives have been impacted by the Bridgers. They are teachers and advisors, congregational leaders, and our youth. The blessing from the teachers and advisors. I speak as the voice for religious education teachers and youth advisors. We have offered you our wisdom when you asked for it, our praise when you acted with compassion, our patience while you were working things out. We have valued your acceptance and encouragement of each other's worth and dignity. May you have faith in your capacities as lifelong teachers and learners of Unitarian Universalism. We bless you now with the gift of respect for this rite of passage into adult community.
I speak as the voice for congregational leaders. We have offered you a place for spirituality, community, and service. We have valued your growing leadership. May you find ways to continue in leadership and service as Unitarian Universalists. You will always have a home in this congregation and in the UU movement. We bless you now with faith for this rite of passage into adult community.
I speak as the voice of YRUU. We have offered you camaraderie, compassion, and sometimes comedy. We have valued your fellowship. May you stay connected with us and the Unitarian Universalist faith through all the adventures life brings. We bless you now with friendship for this rite of passage into adult community.
Will all present please join me in a blessing? The words will be on your screen. We speak as the voice of the congregation. We helped sustain religious education and youth programs, and we cherished your voices in worship and fellowship. We have tried to give you the gift of a place to belong, a place of friendship and growth. We hope that you will know our support and encouragement, whether your journey continues here or elsewhere. As you deepen and grow, so too will the tradition that cherishes you. We bless you now with honor for this rite of passage into adult community. Welcome.
Thankful for the past and with hope for the future, I cross this bridge.
May you be comforted and sustained by Unitarian Universalism. May you continue to grow in spirit.
May you use your gifts to bless the world and to receive the blessings of the world. May you always know this congregation as a religious home.
Wherever you go, may you know peace.
Return again and again in love. Blessed be.
Author John O'Donohue of blessed memory, in his book, To Bless the Space Between Us, writes, "At any time you can ask yourself, at which threshold am I now standing? At this time in my life, what am I leaving? Where am I about to enter? What is preventing me from crossing my next threshold? What gift would enable me to do it?" A threshold is not a simple boundary. It is a frontier that divides two different territories, rhythms and atmospheres. Indeed, it is a lovely testimony to the fullness and integrity of an experience, or a stage of life that it intensifies toward the end into a real frontier that cannot be crossed without the heart being passionately engaged and woken up. At this threshold, a great complexity of emotions comes alive. Confusion, fear, excitement, sadness, hope. This is one of the reasons such vital crossing were always clothed in ritual. It is wise in your own life to be able to recognize and acknowledge the key thresholds, to take your time, to feel all the varieties of presence that accrue there, to listen inward with complete attention until you hear the inner voice calling you forward. The time has come to cross.
In this community, people are crossing many different thresholds. Our bridgers are crossing over a threshold, moving into their power as adults to face challenges, responsibilities, and joys during this time when our collective liberation is so urgent. There are those among us on the threshold between illness and health. There are those among us who have crossed into a newfound energy to organize for liberation, and those who have crossed into newfound anger or numbness or confusion that may or may not make organizing difficult. There are those among us who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color who live with the threat of police violence and other dangers of white supremacy every day, for whom crossing the threshold away from home brings an extra risk. There are those among us who have found jobs, those who have lost them, and those who cross the threshold into their workplaces knowing that they are in danger from COVID or from their work environment or from the whims of a cruel economy. We remember those who have crossed the threshold beyond this life, loved ones who were close to us, or people we didn't know whose names we speak in solidarity, or mentors and role models whose legacies live on. We are angry, tired, sad, hopeful, overwhelmed. If we are lucky, there are pockets of revolutionary joy, life that continues despite the forces of repression and death. If we are lucky, we find at this threshold a source of resilience. We're going to try to hold all of that. During the music, if you are worshiping with us live, please type your joys or sorrows into the chat box or type the name of someone that you're holding in remembrance. Please remember that the chat box is public during the live stream. The Joys and Sorrows chat has proven to be full and fast moving, so we don't expect that everyone will be able to read every response. If you would like to discuss your joy or sorrow with a peer listener, please email layministers@uucss.org and let them know that you need support. If you're watching a recording later, please take this moment of meditation to reflect, to journal, to name the love that has been in your life, past or present. As we enter into reflection on joys and sorrows, we're grateful to Phyllis Stanley for providing music. May all be held in love. These are words by the Reverend Bill Singford. He writes, "Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us to hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history. May we find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen." Let us join together in sung meditation.
This year has and will bring some significant transitions. Having them happen during COVID also changes their nature. The first transition was the passing of my mother in February. I was very lucky to be able to mourn her in the company of caring friends. I was able to celebrate her life at UUCSS in a memorial on March 8th. That was the last time we would all be together in the sanctuary. I feel for those who could not mourn their loved ones in person. For me, it was especially important to be in community for this transition. I have no family, just a sister, and we're estranged. The idea of not doing something to honor my mother, to share what I loved about her and who she was, made me really sad. I was and remain so moved and grateful for everyone who showed up to be there for me, to hear about someone they didn't even know, to share in my grief, and to help me with this important rite of passage. This brings me to my next transition, this one in the thick of COVID, which is my moving away from the area for a work assignment to Miami. As part of my work requirement, I have to be a humanitarian advisor to the military for 2 years, covering Latin America and the Caribbean. Like with any transitions, there are mixed feelings. The feeling of loss, of leaving behind this beloved community, dear friends, and all have built for the last 15 years. And then there's also the feeling of excitement, of a new era in my life and work, being in a different culture, one that is warm and tropical, and then the chance to travel to places I've never seen. It took time to build community here in PG County, where I moved in 2005. It took time to find UUCSS and to build those connections. During that time, I recall the moments when I realized I didn't feel alone. There were people who really cared. There was a sense of a safety net, which is precious. One time that comes to mind that I really felt this way was when I busted my ACL ligament in my knee during a particularly violent Zumba class. My knee swelled to the size of a basketball, I had surgery, and then there I was on the couch needing 2 shifts of people a day, for a week to bring me ice, to cook me food, and to pill up the shades of the living room so I wouldn't lay on the couch in the dark all day. My doctors had failed to tell me that I would need such support for weeks and that I wouldn't be able to move. I had posted my surgery on Facebook, and I noticed there were some aggressively helpful UUs. They weren't just saying, let me know if you need anything, but they were saying, what time should I be there? I will never forget Joe Paletti showing up the first morning with a bag of ice for my ice machine for my knee. Then Cindy and Olivia came and made me the best scrambled eggs I've ever had. Sally Porter took me to my first post-op doctor's appointment, and Beverly Schnetzler offered to fly to Chicago to pick up my mother, who could not make the trip to see me alone since her memory was not good and she couldn't fly without help. I was not super close to any of these people, yet they offered to take time, such a precious resource, and spend it with me and on me. My sense of place in the world shifted after that to one of feeling more secure in the world. Some of my good friends had not shown up for me during the crisis, but others who I didn't know half as well had stepped in. I was beginning to have faith that when in community, one's suffering won't go unnoticed, and one's needs may not go unaddressed. This makes it particularly hard to leave, even if only for 2 years, even if I will come back. What we have built here is really precious. And during this time of the pandemic, I don't get to stand in front of you in person and tell you how much you mean to me and that I'm sad to leave. There are no goodbye hugs. There's no chance to look you in the eyes. Just a look at the laptop camera. My idea to stay connected by flying back and forth has also been affected by COVID. With flying a risk and the numbers going up of infections, maintaining contact with home is going to be more difficult and risky. And building new connections in a new town feels really strange, if not impossible. So we have to adapt and show our love in other ways. Stay connected through different means. Make a new kind of effort to get creative, to keep our love and community connected. To quote my wise and poetic friend Dean Kerrigan, we need to always remember that love is the strongest force in the universe. There is no distance between humans, no length of time that can make this love vanish or diminish. I will miss you all.
Hello, my name is Tanya Palacio. I've been attending UUCSS along with my 3 children, Isani, Arani, and Nuri, for a little over 3 years. I'll be sharing my reflection about how I have observed life's changes during this pandemic and how that has affected me. Our family has been through many different milestones in the last 5 months. We've celebrated birthdays of all 3 of my children, observed Ramadan, and had some good health news. One transition has been around a death in the family. In April, my Uncle Ray died. Uncle Ray was married to my Aunt Tony for 52 years. They migrated from Belize to Queens, New York in the 1960s. Their home was like Ellis Island to many Belizeans. Everyone who got off the plane from Belize came to their home for advice, shelter, money, food, you name it. Uncle Ray owned a construction company, and he gave all the Belizean immigrants work. Aunt Tony and Uncle Ray have been retired for quite a few years now, and they spent their time between Queens and Belize. Earlier this year, Uncle Ray had taken a bad fall back home in Belize. They returned to the States where he spent some time in a rehab center. A few weeks after coming home from the rehab facility, he fell ill with labored breathing and shortness of breath. When the ambulance arrived to pick him up, he pleaded with them to stay home, or at least have Aunt Tony come with him. Of course, she couldn't. The pandemic was in full swing by then, and no one was allowed to accompany the sick to the hospital or even visit. My Aunt Tony received a call that evening from the hospital informing her of Uncle Ray's death. My heart wept for her. The pain and grief of not being able to see Uncle Ray before his death after 52 years of marriage was unimaginable to me. After calling around for days, Antoni was able to find a funeral home to bury Uncle Ray. But there would be no wake, there would be no viewing, and only 5 people could attend the funeral. This was not the traditional end-of-life ritual ceremony that Uncle Ray deserved. When Antoni shared that news with me, I felt compelled to do something about it. As a family, I felt we needed rituals and traditions. We needed to come together to cry, to tell stories about Uncle Ray, to laugh, to pray, to mourn, and to sing. I volunteered to coordinate an online virtual memorial service for Uncle Ray. I upgraded my Zoom account, read articles about online services, watched Zoom tutorials, and spoke with some UUCSS members who were familiar with Zoom. I put together a slideshow with music and pictures of Uncle Ray with Antoni, with his siblings, with his children, and other relatives and friends. Uncle Ray's brother is a deacon, and he was able to perform a traditional Catholic Mass with rosary recitation and hymns. We even gave folks the opportunity to share their own memories about Uncle Ray during the ceremony. And my cousin, Uncle Ray's son, read his eulogy to the over 100 attendees. People attended Uncle Ray's service from all over the country, Belize, England, Canada. I was most delighted that my Aunt Tony was able to witness all the people who loved Uncle Ray as she did. As a Catholic, it meant the world to my Aunt Tony that her husband's soul was prayed over so that he could rightfully enter the gates of heaven. Oh, how that made my heart smile that I was able to give that to her. The pleasure was all mine. I felt an abundance of joy at the end of the ceremony. This abrupt loss of such an important elder in my family, coupled with the COVID-19 restrictions on funerals and social gatherings, thrusted me into a recognition that I was able to be of service to someone else. COVID-19 couldn't take away the significance of celebrating Uncle Ray's life. How fulfilling it was for me to bring together my family for our rituals and traditions surrounding his death. And through this experience, I've learned that we can't minimize the importance of these transitions, even though we can't celebrate them in the ways that we are accustomed to. They still matter, and they still have meaning.
At this pivotal time in the world, in this nation, in the life of this congregation, generosity is a sign that we have not given up. We sustained and are sustained by communities where lamentation is held, communities where we learn and grow, communities where our spirits can be repaired and prepared for a mission of love. I'm grateful that many of you are giving as generously as you can to community partner organizations engaged in the work of liberation, and I hope you will give generously to this congregation as well. There are several ways to make your gift to the UU Church of Silver Spring. If you have a tablet or smartphone, you can download the Give Plus mobile app, search in zip code 20903, and select UUCSS. Then you can choose Annual Budget Drive for a general gift to the church. Another option is Text to Give. You'll see a number on your screen. Send a message to that number with a $sign and the number indicating the amount of your gift. You'll get a reply text message with a link to a secure site where you can complete your donation. As a third option, your checks sent to the church through the postal mail are still very welcome. Please address your envelope to the attention of the collector and indicate on your check if your gift is toward your pledge to the church. As we reflect on how each one of us can take the actions within our power to help move the world toward justice and compassion, we are grateful to Charles Alexander for his gift of music.
You say you mean good for me, but you don't do it. You say you have a plan, but you just don't go through with it. You say you know the way to go, and I should follow. But all of your empty promises leave me hollow. And oh, how do I trust you? How do I love you when you lie to me repeatedly? And oh, how do I have faith in you when you just don't come through like you said you could? Oh, just say, can you see? You say that I'm wrong for stating my opinion to you. You say that I'm wrong and there'll be quiet consequences too. But I know my rights, babe. There'll be no law abridging the freedom of my speech or the right for me to petition for a remedy of grievances. And I want to trust you. I want to love you, yeah. But you lie to me repeatedly, and oh, I want to have faith in you, but you just don't come through like you said you could. Oh, say, can you see? I want fresh fruits, clean water, heaven I don't see. I want the feeling of being safe on my streets. I want my children to be smarter than me. I wanna feel free, for real, y'all. I'm just telling you, so you know. I wanna faith in you, I really do, but you keep lying to me, and it hurts. I believe you owe it to me. Give it to me like you said you would. Oh, say, can you see? Oh, say, can you see? Say, can you see? By the dawn's early light.
John O'Donohue writes that a phase of life that is passing away intensifies toward the end into a real frontier that cannot be crossed without the heart being passionately engaged and woken up. I hope that is true. I hope it is true that the intensity we are now feeling, the anger at police violence and other forms of white supremacy, the deep grief over lives lost, the disgust as blatant appeals towards fascism, I hope that intensity means that we are headed into a mass awakening of the mind, heart, and soul that will settle for nothing less than collective liberation. We are indeed surrounded and filled with complex and overwhelming emotion. I don't know about you, but I can barely contain my rage and sadness, and I have a hard time concentrating. And I can only imagine what my beloveds who are Black, Indigenous, and/or people of color are feeling, how being both used to the persistence of white supremacy and yet being traumatized anew by recent events weigh on these friends and family. I am praying with and for you, for your safety, for your families, for you to be held in love. As I said in my pastoral letter last Sunday, a white supremacist system is working through humans to rob our beloveds of the breath of life. It is our moral and spiritual responsibility to respond to the deadly evil of racism. In the midst of this violence, in the midst of racist rhetoric, in the midst of peaceful medics and clergy being driven away from a church so that the occupant of the White House can pose for a photo that makes a mockery of faith, in the midst of militarized response to people exercising their right to protest, in the midst of our own governor sending National Guard troops to D.C. to attack fellow citizens, we keep moving across other thresholds. This year's graduates from high schools, colleges, and other institutions find themselves marking the occasion like no other class in history, and they face challenges that echo but are not quite like any other class in history. I wish those of us who graduated some time ago could have prepared a more hospitable world by now, but I'm glad that this year's class is here, ready for the world as it is and will be, already involved in the struggle for a just and sustainable society. So many among us and around us keep adapting to changes in our calling, our vocation, our ways of paying the bills and getting by. I'm thinking of hospital workers, nurses, doctors, techs, custodians, everyone who creates an environment for healing, and how they have patched together personal protective equipment from wherever they can find it. Workers who know that they won't get a raise or a bonus for their heroic work and may even be laid off thanks to our for-profit healthcare system. And then we look at the tax money being fired out of tear gas canisters and rubber bullet launchers, a seemingly endless supply of resources when the purpose is repression rather than health and well-being. The way medical staff go to work has changed. They are on the brink of something new, too. The way we do our jobs has changed for so many people and has not changed enough for some of the most vulnerable workers. And who has a job has changed a lot in the last 5 months. These passages deserve noticing. Major thresholds should involve some ritual. People keep moving, some people many miles away. Veronica spoke about her upcoming move to Florida and how she will need to find new ways of saying goodbye, new ways of staying connected, new ways of creating a life for herself. She reminds us to keep an eye out for people who might need a friend, to ask, when can I drop off these groceries instead of, let me know if there's anything I can do. Worship services may be online for some time. It is important to consider as a community what it means to welcome the stranger, what it would mean to harbor someone, how to be a place of hope and healing when a new person enters in a new way during this time of doing everything differently. As you prepare to welcome Reverend Kristen in August, the beginning of that relationship is another one that will require new rituals, new ways of marking thresholds. Through all of this, loved ones are dying. Tanya spoke about the loss of her uncle, a revered elder in her family and in her community. According to the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Research Center, we have lost over 100,000 Americans to the virus. That is 100,000 uncles, aunts, parents, children, spouses, people who were loved and valued, people who probably did not get a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones in person before they crossed over the threshold. Families are finding ways to mark the passage, finding ways to connect with loved ones around the globe in their grief and to honor the life that has passed. we need these rituals. And we also need national rituals of mourning. We need to commit to each other's well-being in solidarity with the families who grieve and to prevent as many future deaths as possible. Many of us are not covering a lot of distance these days in terms of miles, though some of us are. But all of us are travelers. Some of us have rougher terrain than others, especially at this time of blatantly violent white supremacy, this time of undisguised ableism, this time when property gets more respect than people. Our journeys are not equal, yet they have in common the need for our attention. We are gathered on a threshold. The voice that calls to us will ask something different of each person. We may not have chosen to be at a turning point. We do have some choices about how to understand and act on our response. The voice that is calling us forward asks us to live by our values. Let us engage and awaken our passionate hearts. The time has come to cross. So be it. Blessed be. Amen. We're going to take a few moments for reflection, but first I want to say something about the reflection music. This is a piece from a Broadway show called Come From Away, about a town in Newfoundland that sheltered over 7,000 people on September 11th, 2001, people who were passengers and crew on airplanes that could not enter the United States. People from around the world were welcomed by the town of Gander, population 10,000, and this song describes the school library, which was turned into an interfaith chapel, a place where people at a devastating moment of history found a moment of refuge. May we create such sanctuaries for all who mourn. And my question is this: what are you called to at this threshold? Where are your values leading you at this dividing line in history, maybe at a dividing line in your personal life? What are you about to enter? What are you called to do? If you're worshiping with us live, please write your short answers in the chat. If you're watching later, please take some time for reflection, perhaps journal or communicate your answer to a loved one. Let us enter into a time of reflection together.
Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, through faith in you.
Where they are channel of your peace.
Make me a channel of your
Where
peace.
there's despair in life, let
Where
me
there's
bring
despair in life, let me
Where
bring
there is darkness, only
Where there is
light.
darkness, only
Where
light,
there's darkness,
ever
there
say shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'akol Yisrael.
Oh, Master, grant that I may never
Say shalom,
so much to be consoled as to console.
Yaseh shalom,
To be understood, shalom, to be Yaseh shalom, my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy.
Hi everyone, my name is Carl Miller and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. My pronouns are he, him, his. Something very important for UUCSS members is happening after service today. The annual meeting will take place at 12 o'clock p.m. over Zoom. Information about this meeting, including a web link, has been sent out over email. If you have any trouble connecting, contact vstechsupport@uucss.org. This meeting will be somewhat like the previous meeting we had at the end of April when we voted on our settled minister, except this time the votes will be done entirely within Zoom. We have 4 things to vote on: candidates for the board and leadership development committees, the budget, the new bylaws, and the resolution to explore a new 8th principle. We hope to see you there.
Our closing song is one you may remember from our Martin Luther King Jr. Day service back in January. It's an anti-apartheid song from South Africa that continues to be used in movements such as the Poor People's Campaign. Our singers, led by Deborah Thornton, will be using the version of the song that names Walking, and we acknowledge that some of us may move through the world by rolling. We'll wish one another courage, freedom, patience, justice, hope, and then back to courage. Let's sing together.
Courage,
Courage,
my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Freedom, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Patience, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Justice, my friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. My friend, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirit home. Courage, my friend, you do not walk alone.
As we near the end of our service and prepare for the annual meeting, find your chalice or flashlight near you, get ready to extinguish it, and to let us know in the chat that you will carry the flame. Please join me in the words of chalice extinguishing. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Beloveds, we are called. Whether your threshold is graduation, mourning, birth, awakening, or learning how to survive and thrive, let us pray for one another that we cross thresholds as safely as we can, rooted in our values, connected to this congregation and to the source of love. Go in peace, return again in love. Blessed be.
Well, I learned as a child there are two ways to see this. The way that it is and the way it could be. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. They see the hole in the fabric that could be sewn. They see a way blockaded and they roll back the stone. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. Some people do what must be done. They do what must be done. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. So I've seen the toll taken, the tears that were shed. I've seen the journey started and the ripple spread. Some people say it's just not their problem. Some people do what must be done. Some people do what must be done. They do what must be done. Some people say that's just not my